something that gets my blood boiling when it comes to conversion rate optimization are agencies that they're testing way too slow. And then later they'll tell the client, I couldn't test faster because you didn't have enough traffic. Well, that's something that should have been addressed way up front. You can tell how much traffic is coming into a site. It's pretty easy to look into the analytics and do a calculation on, based on this traffic, here's how many tests we can run. Okay, so no excuses for telling a client that way too late in the process. The other thing is you don't have to just rely on the traffic that's coming in order to run tests. So there are some tricks to increasing testing velocity, and that's what I want to show you is how we get our testing velocity way up in order to run more tests faster, make decisions faster, and get the conversion rates a lot higher, a lot faster. Okay, so let's dig into testing velocity. I'm going to share my screen. So first things first, I want to take you in here because for those of you that aren't familiar with how we do click testing and what it's used for, then this will be helpful to just get you grounded. This is one of the methods we use to increase testing velocity. And so when you think about a landing page or a web page and you're trying to run tests on that page, those are very expensive tests. And you're also testing a lot of different variables, right? You're testing so many different messages, images, call to actions, all of that. What we do is we like to isolate as many variables as we can, and we test these off before we put them on the page. So this is off-page testing. And we always start with pain points. What's our ICP's pain points? And then we've got a test container for that. So what we're looking for is this more painful or this one? How about this? What's the most painful way to describe their messaging? I'm sorry. What's the best way to describe your ICP's pain? Okay, once we get some signal there, then we can test some images. We can run more messaging tests, by the way. We can test images. This is an example where I was testing my LinkedIn profile and I was trying to decide which image to use. These are AI generated headshots and this pose one and then this image one. But you can imagine we can test many different types of images. If you're e-com, you're B2B, or SaaS, we can test product images. Once you start to learn what your audience is clicking on, then you can start to build more of a story. So you can start to add in multiple variables into your tests. I'm not going to go through all these. I'm happy to walk through this in more detail on a call if you're interested. And what we're looking for is a cheaper way to test than just on-page CRO. Like I said, very expensive to do on-page CRO. So we break it down into smaller pieces. Here's an example of a headline test where this illustration, this image worked really well with my audience. So I used that here. And then I was testing different headlines. Like what's that perfect headline that's going to get my audience clicking like crazy? And I found the one that got my audience clicking like crazy. Let's pause on this for a second, because if I were to do, how many different headlines did I test? 4, 8, 12 headlines. If I were to do 12 headline tests on a landing page, that's very expensive. And that's going to take a really long time, likely, to run through all 12 variants, especially since most websites are probably getting enough traffic for, I'd say, 1 to 5 tests per month. So this would be what, 3 months worth of testing, best case scenario. So this is one of our secrets to be able to increase testing velocity is we do the off-page testing. We get this click testing, and then we're able to take what's winning and then put that on page and then use one of those expensive tests for something that's already been tested. And that's how we're able to get these higher conversion rates. Okay, so that's a preview of the click testing. Now what I want to do, let me show you this too real quick. What comes out of all that testing is our gold coins. So what are the messages that are really resonating with our audience? What are the images that are really resonating? And we were able to put together a gold coin library. So every message from here on up was getting 4% click through at least. And then the messages from here, 2 to 4% click through. So these become gold coins, but they're assets. They're little mini assets for your business. These messages, you can put them anywhere in any of your marketing materials. You can even put them in your sales script. but you know they already resonate with your audience, so use them liberally. Okay, so I think gives you a good idea on the click testing and how we use that to increase testing velocity. And then I got another one to show you. This is where another professional CRO agency was working on a client account, and they weren't moving the needle. They're just kind of staying steady with all their tests. When we came in and leveraged the click testing, and we also have some other tricks up our sleeve when it comes to CRO, our first test gave a 12-point bump. And then not very long later, we're able to get a 16-point bump. So testing velocity wise, we're actually at the same pace that they were, but we're able to get those bigger bumps because we're bringing in learnings from other things into our tests. Okay, so on-page testing, like I said, so here's option one. We're doing our click testing. We're looking for gold coins. So what are those messages and images that really resonate? We'll pull that into the live page and use software like convert.com to run our A/B testing. Okay. That's likely going to be in like the 1 to 3 tests per month, 1 to 5 tests per month. These are still going to be great tests because we're pulling in learnings into the test. So those likely are still going to get us some boosts, but testing velocity overall is pretty low on the page. So how do we speed up the on-page testing? Okay, so same thing as before, we do our click testing, pull our gold coins in, but now let's get some more traffic flowing in there so we can increase that testing velocity, so we can run more tests. And the cool thing is, because we've run all of these click tests, we have a pretty good idea of what our audience wants, and it's relatively easy to put together an ad at that point that resonates with our audience and pulls in traffic, the right traffic at a reasonable cost. We call it a traffic ad or a growth ad. We can bring more traffic into that live site in order to run more on-page tests and get that testing velocity up. Okay, so that's an option. The question mark, the reason why I have question marks here is we don't know how fast we're going to be able to test on a live site until we know who's involved. What's the growth team? Are we working with your developers? Are we working with your designers? Are we bringing our own developers, designers? You know, who's that core team? And what's the cadence? How do we work together? Are we doing daily scrums? Are we doing weekly scrums? Faster decisions made? Who are all the decision makers in the process? And so obviously over time, you know, we want the right people on the team and we want to be able to move quickly. And we might start with only being able to do 1 test per month. But as we start to figure out our processes, we can get that testing velocity up. So this is completely doable. This likely is going to be increase the testing velocity over this, where we just get additional traffic flowing in. Now, what we prefer to do when we can is our growth team. We've all worked together. We know each other. We know how to move quickly. We like to set up a test laboratory where we can control our tests, and we can generally move faster when we're setting up a test laboratory. So do our click testing, get our gold coins. We're using that in a test laboratory. We can send in additional traffic into here. Generally, we can get 5 to 20 tests per month going in this test laboratory. And what's so cool about this is we can test a whole page in here, not just parts of the page. Like, let's get that whole page tested and working and converting better than the live page. Then let's rebuild that experience for one of our tests on the live site. And generally, we're using for our 1 to 3 tests per month, we're using something that's already been tested and proven to work. Over here, what we see is because the traffic going to a live site is generally warmer than the traffic we're sending in from ads, then if we can get it working well here, and then we move it over into the live site, let's say the conversion rate over here is 10%. When we move it to a live site, it usually gets another bump. And so we've seen anywhere from like a 2-point bump to, I think we've seen even like a 30-point bump just by moving it from this traffic source to this traffic source. So that's how we tackle the issue of testing velocity. We got to get that testing velocity up in order to get those conversion rates up and up and up. So if there's anything you saw in there that you want me to go into in more detail, just message me. Let's set up a time. Happy to walk you through and explain things and show you how this works for multiple industries. And I think that's it. So hope you have a good day and happy testing.